Good morning and welcome back to my library. We've been discussing what I do with kindergarten during the first few weeks of library. Week 1, just as a quick recap, I do an orientation with them. So I welcome them into the library, we talk about what a library is, we review the concepts of borrowing and checking in and checking out, and I read a quick book to them. This year's book was This Book Just Ate My Dog, and I did a quick book talk on that a couple of weeks ago. In week 2, we talk about the basics of book care. Again, a couple of weeks ago, actually it was over the summer, I did a book talk on a book called Read It, Don't Eat It. And I had made some cards to go along with this book. So read it, don't eat it. And so here we've got the tiger eating the book, and use a bookmark, don't dog ear it. And we talk about what dog earing is, or what making a tent with our books is, and I show them examples of what happens to books when we make the tent and the spine breaks. We also talk about checking out books and not sneaking them out or not forgetting to check them out, and those types of concepts, so that the kids get a really good idea of how we should be treating our books. I really hit heavily on keeping our water bottles away from books in our backpacks because of the damage that can cause. And I have a whole box of books that have been previously damaged that I share with the kids, so that they see that this isn't something that I'm making up. This is truly things that happens to books. And during week 2, they check out books for the first time. Now, when I have kindergartners check out books, I do not just let them loose on the racks. I have it set up in a very systematic, sequential way. So first, what they do is they choose from books on tables. So you'll see behind me, I'm getting ready for a kindergarten class this morning, and what I'll do first is have them do a book walk, where they'll put their hands behind their backs, and then we'll walk in a line looking at all the books, and then I'll say, okay, if you see a book that you think you're interested in checking out, walk to it and put your hand on the book. And then of course before that, we've discussed that sometimes they won't get their first choice of books. Sometimes they'll have to wait until another time. So they already know in their minds that if they don't get their first choice this time, they can get it another time. And then they, if I can see that there's no conflicts between, double hands on books, then I'll go ahead and say, okay, now pick up the book that you're interested in checking out. And then I walk them over to our circulation desk where one of our volunteers is waiting. Again, it's always very controlled and systematic, because I want them to learn how to do library in steps. So week 3 of library, we're ready to talk about how to behave in the library manners. They are checking out books again, but I'm keeping it to this system behind me where they're checking out books that I've pre-selected. I'm not going to let them loose on the shelves until I have trained them how to use shelf markers. And even then, I'm just going to open up one area of shelves at a time. In fact, in the beginning, they're not going to pick from the shelves, they're going to pick from a cart on which I have pre-selected books. So back to how I teach library manners. This year's theme in our library is that we're wild about reading. So the books that I'm selecting have to do with animals and reading, or wild situations and reading. So the perfect book for this is Library Lion. Let me grab this for you, by Michelle Knudsen. If you have never seen this book before, you have got to check this one out. I absolutely love this for teaching library manners. It's about a lion who comes in to visit a library. Now I'm going to share a few pages with this book, but not everything, because I do want to protect the copyright of the author. So here's our lion coming into the library to visit, and when he gets there, he walks right into the stacks, and one of the circulation librarians is very startled to have a lion visiting the library. So he runs to tell the head librarian, and our lion comes in and he takes a nap, and he kind of begins to figure out story time, but then when the story is over, he doesn't like that so much, and he roars, and the head librarian promptly comes out and tells him that there is no roaring in the library. Well, after some time, the lion begins to figure out the rules of the library and actually becomes a big helper, and there's one point in which he needs to get help for the head librarian who has fallen. And so he runs down the hall, which of course is against the rules, and he roars at the circulation desk librarian. So anyway, the lion gets into trouble for that, and he ends up leaving the library. And the big question is, will he come back? So I'll let you figure out that part. Anyway, the kids absolutely love this story, and after I read it, we have a discussion about what rules they think we should have in our library. And of course, they come up with all the regulars that we're quiet, and I'll tell you guys, we are not quiet in this library. This is a classroom, and this is a talking library, but I do talk about using inside voices. We talk about we talk about throwing away trash. We talk about not chewing gum. We talk about keeping food away. They know these basics because we had already done a discussion on that the previous week. You know, to keep it easy for my students, I've identified 3 basic rules that we adhere to in this library. All the other things kind of fall under one of those rules. So our 3 rules in this library are, number 1, that we respect each other. And so that's gonna cover things like raising your hand and taking turns talking and keeping an inside voice level so that we don't disturb the classes around us. Number 2 is that we respect our books, and that's going to cover things like taking care of our books when they're at home, putting them in our backpacks, taking our water bottles out, keeping our books away from baby brothers and sisters who might not know how to take care of books. And then number 3 is respecting our library, and with that we talk about keeping our library clean and organized, and so that covers things like shelf markers and throwing away garbage and not bringing gum into the library. Now with the littles, with the kindergartners and first graders, and even sometimes the second graders, I don't necessarily use the words respect each other, respect our books, respect our library. Instead, I'll use words like be kind to each other, be kind to our books, take care of our books, take care of our library, because those are concepts that they're going to understand more easily. All right, so that's week 3 of Time in the Library with our kinders. They love it. They're so excited at this point, and because I've made things pretty slow and systematic, they know exactly what my expectations are, and so far they are doing a phenomenal job of behaving well and taking care of their books. You know, it's a learning process for them and for me. So thanks again for stopping by to visit. I'm Mary Chappell from the Librarians Literature Links. Next week, I'll talk about how we start getting ready, kindergartners ready to check out books from the shelves and using shelf markers. Take care. Bye.